Hey everybody, this is Kohdok here, and Bakugan Armored Alliances has been making its way across the country. I managed to actually get my hands on one of the Armored Elite starter decks. As you can tell, I picked the one with the Haos Bakugan inside because I like to collect the Haos Bakugan. Although, another thing I've been doing is I have actually been talking about how other games present their starter decks to try to get new players to buy into it, and I figured that might be a good idea to do with this as well. I've talked about this a few times, but once again, for the folks in the back, this is not really a judgment of the card game itself. It is purely based on the presentation of the starter deck box. And what the deck box should ideally do is the front should make me want to walk over and pick it up to take a look at the back, and the back should convince me that I want to buy this, and the contents should make me feel that I made the right decision. So I've analyzed a few of those. I might put some links in the description or at the end of the video, but let's take a look at how Bakugan does it. Now, the front of the box, like I said, it's supposed to make me see it from a long distance, walk over, and pick it up, and I have to say, on this front, I am not impressed. It does say something important. It mentions a 40-card deck included. That is something that establishes this as a separate item from the other ones out there, the other 3-packs, the other Bakugan products that cost $30. It establishes that this is supposed to get you into the card game, which has now been labeled Bakugan Pro to distinguish it from the basic game. But the front of this box doesn't really have much going for it as far as eye-catching appeal. The package color is kind of bland, although this is to keep it more in line with the Takara Tomy packaging and with the packaging of the rest of the series. That's one thing, but otherwise there isn't really anything that grabs my attention to offset that. You could try to say that the Bakugan inside are supposed to be the thing that catches my attention, but if that's the case, then this is the worst way of doing it, because here's the thing, is if this thing's sitting vertically on the shelf, there's the lights overhead, you can see how, like, everything inside this box is getting obscured in there. You can't really see this when it's sitting right side up on a shelf. That's a bit of a design fail there. Also, you know, it just plain old says starter set. It's not like giving me like a cool name or anything. Or you know what might have been cool? It would have been like some art assets up here, like a big old picture or something, like a blown up picture of the Trox Ultra that's being used on there. You know, something really glittery and shiny to make people say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm a big gorilla, straight in your face. I am here, and I want you to come and pick me up and take a look at what I'm all about." But unfortunately, this box really doesn't have that. And before anybody argues it's because they want to have standardized packaging across all the starter decks, based on the back, this is custom designed packaging, because this mentions that Trox Ultra is inside. It has pictures of the characters we're getting inside, so why not have that be reflected on the front? In fact, I think a lot of the toy products do have those sorts of big art assets telling us that, showing off what makes this thing so cool, and yet this is, for some reason, the exception to that. And you know what else might help is if, like, those other toys, like on the back, said something like, I don't know,
"Level up your game with Bakugan Pro,"
or something like that on the back of them to help people know that there is in fact a larger card game going on than just these toys. That might not be a bad thing, but like I said, the front is not impressed. This is the only thing I can say is good about it, is it does tell us what we need to know. The front doesn't even name these characters or something. I mean, if they'd had like a profile rundown of the 3 characters here, which are Aquos, Trox, Ultra, Haos, Pharol, and I believe Aurelus, Nillious, then that would be a lot more appealing. Like, even if we gave the starter deck a name, even if they just like threw a name like on here, like, I don't know, Bakugear Bonanza, something like that, something that works in any language, just something that people in the community can use to label other than just saying Aquos Trox starter deck. Something, you know, kind of exciting, like that explains how to go. On the side, it also says all you need to play the Bakugan Pro card game, 40 card deck included, repeating itself. And the back should be what convinces me to buy more, and unfortunately, it is maybe a little too reminiscent of the of the toy packaging again. It again says, all you need to play the Bakugan Pro card game. Didn't it say that on the side and also the front? That's a little bit redundant, and it names Trox Ultra but doesn't name these two, and again, it doesn't really have a lot of the art assets. Now, on other games, this would be where they put the information to tell you, hey, thank you for picking this up, here's the lowdown on this thing. I'm not really seeing that here. They would include like a deck list or at least a deck breakdown, something to explain how the game works and what it's about, maybe a few more cool art assets. Instead, here we get the same sort of list we would get on any of the toys, an ad for some more of the toys, and an ad for some more of the toys. I think maybe if they had like a picture of people like playing the full game or something, like somebody holding a hand of cards and some other cool stuff going on, and maybe a breakdown of the deck, like, I don't know, it's like talking about how use the amazing powers of Bakugan to trample all over your opponent just like Trox, or something like that. Something cool that explains how the deck works. I think that would serve it a lot better, but as this thing stands right now, it's kind of boring, and I don't know how many people would pick it up outside of the familiar name. And like I said, if you're talking familiar name, then boy howdy do the big three have you beat, because they have that familiar name plus all of the awesome detail and information that makes the deck so appealing. So that aside, let's get this thing open. So it's another one where, fortunately, I believe I don't have to destroy it. I can just open this top flap here and pull it out, although this is a point against it. The previous version of this had sort of a box design that actually opened on the front, and like I said, with just a little bit of tweaking, it could have held a box in it. And although this is clearly meant to be like an interchangeable shell of contents, but that's not really a problem because this is meant to be the same inside of every box. That's not really a big deal. We have this kind of cool picture of Dragonoid with a laser on his head, a freaking laser on his head. I think that might be our rulebook, along with the cards. We have the instructions for the Trox, which on the back also includes a checklist. They don't have any of the Bakugan on the checklist. That's kind of weird. And we have our cores. 6. We got 3 fists, 2 shield, and 1 magic shield. I see a couple that, most of these, a couple of these mention the Bakugan on them, and the rest are all basically updated versions of cores we have seen before. A couple of them are top tier, the plus 300 and the plus 150B plus 2. The others not so remarkable, and 2 of them have have low stats, but they also offer a bonus to pay for the Bakugan, which is the big theme of Armored Alliances, or Armored Elite, is the Bakugan cards, which I've looked at in another game. They might have a few in the deck too, who knows. And we have our character cards. So yeah, I was right, we have Pharol. I don't know if they have held back on printing the attributes or the special abilities on the cards included in these decks. That would be honestly kind of silly because this is supposed to be the pro game. Otherwise, we have a 403 in an environment that has much higher power. That's not very good at all. We have Nillious Ultra. It's a 605. It is literally a stronger version of the previous Aurelus Nillious, although this Aurelus Nillious only, I think the other one I think brought in 2 shield. This one brings in 2 fist, but at a 605, it's literally a better version. And we have Trox Ultra, which is a 505, which 10 points, that's relatively on par with a lot of the Ultras. Like, it's roughly the same stats as the Pyrus Ultra Dragonoid, although the cores are a bit weaker. Not very strong cores coming out of this thing, aside from those couple that I mentioned. And then we have the deck. So in here we got the deck. Oh. And the rules. So this thing, even though Armored Alliances is all about the Bakugan, it doesn't actually include any Bakugan toys. Okay, yeah, there we go. Collectible toy card game rule book. Alright, so we have a rule book. It certainly looks a lot more robust than the ones that were previously included. We also have our deck of 40 cards, which are sealed in the plastic. We got Hyper Pharol on the front. It looks like we have, oh, wow, that's a lot of, these silver bordered cards are the Bakugear, and it looks like we actually got quite a few of those, so let's take a closer look at some of these. Alright, here we are with the 3 Bakugan on their character cards. However, I think we're going to talk about these toys a bit later, because first we're going to talk about this. So, this starter deck came with an updated version of the rulebook. It's still pretty small, but it's a lot more robust than the one we had before. It does distinguish the different phases that a turn has going on for it, like the brawl and the victory phase and the damage phase, and all of that, although it does not mention priority anywhere. Priority is determining who has the burden of taking an action first. It could have just said anywhere, like at the during the roll phase. It could have said that whoever placed the last core or won the last brawl must choose their Bakugan first. That's the rule for priority. It's pretty easy and straightforward, although what really caught my attention were the rules for Bakugear. So here are the rules for Bakugear, and what they say is that they get permanently attached to a Bakugan, but you can only have one of them attached to it after you pay the energy cost. There are, of course, certain cores that can reduce the cost, but the thing that interested me the most was what it says right here. You can only have one Bakugear attached to a character. If you ever play a second gear card on a character, you must choose one of the 2 cards to discard. So, to my understanding, this means that for the briefest of moments, a Bakugan can have 2 gear on it. So if there are any gear that, for example, have an effect when you put them into play, I imagine you could play them, activate their effect, and discard them. I imagine we might need a ruling on that, like, can I have a Bakugear already? Can I play another Bakugear that lets me draw a card and then just get rid of the one that lets me draw a card? That's gonna be very important, and it's gonna be especially important coming up based on the contents of the deck. Definitely a better rulebook than last time. It still needs the rule for priority, because requesting that rule was the thing that really caused a lot of the big rule changes in the first place. So, starting off, we have the deck, and first we have the card Hyper Pharol. So this deck is, again, kind of lean in its presentation. It, again, only has 3 super rares, 3 super rares, I think it's 11 rares, and the rest are common cards. So it doesn't really have a very good card selection, which is a bit of a bummer, considering that this deck is still $30, and this is actually the only Evo card in the whole deck, so it doesn't really have what the previous decks had. The previous decks, the first wave of decks, had evolutions for every character. This is literally the only one, which means that nothing in this deck hits over 700, which is not very good. When this opens, you may play a Bakugear from your hand on this for free. So, asking that question again, does it mean that we can play a second gear on there, which is on there for a brief instance? Anyway, 705 for 5 is not very good at all, even with this effect, because by the time you have it into play, you probably already have all the Bakugear you're going to need. I don't know if this is particularly good or worth the spot, one of the rare spots. Brilliant Armor. So we have a Bakugear. This deck is actually like 14 Bakugear cards out of 40. That's over a third. This one is 5 energy for plus 300 power and plus 6 damage, and if you win, you draw 1 card. That's not bad. It would be better if that draw effect was attached to a higher B power boost, but if you did some sort of trick to get it in for less or even for free, that might do a bit better. For example, the cores that decrease the cost. And then we have Aquos Greaves. 5 cost, plus 200 power, plus 4 damage, but plus 4 Frost Strike. Ever since it was ruled that cards like Pact of Darkness do not ignore Frost Strike, cards like this are going to be very useful to counter flip decks. And we have our first rare / uncommon, which is Pegatrix Video Star. So this, despite being based on a Bakugan, is actually a hero card. It also has the effect Empower. When you play this, you may pay an additional 3 energy. If you do, draw 2, and when you team attack, you may draw 2. So it has a kicker cost. That's what Empower is. It's a kicker cost that allows you to essentially gain a second card effect off of one card if you have the energy to pay for it. Not to mention 2 cost for a team attack, you may draw 2. That means if you can get your team attack off on turn 3, you can benefit from it basically right away. Oh, now this card, Glimmering Glaive, you'd better watch out for this card. This card is gonna be a menace drinking its juice in the hood. Glimmering Glaive, 4 cost plus 400 B power, but the thing that really has caught my attention here is its effect. When you play this, you may attach a Bakucore from the field to one of your Bakugan. So, here's the thing about that. It's cost 4, but if, say, you pick up a -2 cost Bakucore when you roll the first time, and then you play Glimmering Glaive for just 2 energy, and you use that to pick up another -2 cost core, all of a sudden, any Bakugear cards you plan on playing on that Bakugan cost 4 less energy until the Bakukores are removed from that Bakugan. It would either have to lose the battle, which considering it basically picks up a flat 600 with its effect, possibly more now that the Bakugear cost even less, might not actually happen, especially if you use it in a deck that already has nice combo effects with the cores that you use. But this thing is a 1-card combo starter. You can use it with, for example, Wings of Aquos, which you also get 2 of. Wings of Aquos for cost 5, it's plus 100, it's only plus 100 power and plus 6 damage, but when you play it, you draw 2 cards. If you do the combo I was talking about with Glimmering Glaives, this card costs just 1 energy. So if there are a lot of cards that have these sorts of hit the field effects, and like I said, it's a hit the field effect that allows you to do it right away, and then you can just get rid of Wings of Aquos. Although, if they rule that you have to discard the previous gear, that doesn't matter, because the effect of Glimmering Glaive that you were going for is already in effect. Glimmering Glaive in any deck that uses a lot of Bakugear, this is a card to watch out for. This is easily the best card in the deck, specifically because it can combo with any of these cards that allow you to get an on-play effect nearly for free. Heck, if you play a second one, if you play 2 of them at the same time, all of a sudden that's -6 off a gear, and that's the cost of like every gear in the game. And that second Glimmering Glaive would be 4 points off, so it would be free. This card is going to be insane, so be ready for that. The deck might be worth it for those alone. 2 copies of Haos Deflection. You can only play this before rolling. Hey, that kind of behaves like the old red cards we used to have. This turn, your Bakugan gets Victory, draw 3. Huh, that's kind of cool. That's also very useful for any Bakugan that have like a reroll effect, or if you're able to prevent your opponent from landing their Bakugan, or if you're very confident that you can win. It does have that stipulation where you cannot miss and you must win, but being able to draw 3 in clutch situations might be useful. Haos Control. Haos Control! It's Shadow the Hedgehog. What's he doing in this game? Plus 3 damage and power, you may play an additional 3 energy for 3 Frost Strike. So it's 3 damage for 1, which is actually on par with the higher damage attribute, so I'm not sure what's going on here. An Empower effect for 3 Frost Strike, we already saw, so it's basically 4 energy for plus 3 damage and plus 3 Frost Strike, although we saw the Aqua Greaves, which kind of do that a little bit better. It's plus 4 damage and plus 4 Frost Strike for just 1 more energy. So Haos Control, I don't think it's a very good card, even with its effect. Damage boosters in general have not been very good cards. Speaking of not very good cards, Aquos Bubble. 4 energy for a measly plus 500, or if all enemy Bakugan are the same faction, plus 1500 B power instead. So here's something that's kind of driving me a bit crazy with the game, is they keep putting out cards that are clearly built to go into sideboards, but they're not actually letting us have a sideboard. A lot of the people who developed this game played Magic the Gathering. They're used to sideboards. They're used to seeing cards that would be interesting if they went into sideboards, but they don't seem keen on letting us use sideboards. I'm not sure what the explanation for that is. 2 copies of Haos Bracers. We already saw those. It's 6 cost, but it's plus 1000 B. Again, thanks to these cores, you can decrease the cost. And if you combine it with Glimmering Glaive, you can cut that cost down even more, which allows you to get a permanent plus 1000 boost on whatever you choose to fairly early on. If you get 2 copies of Glimmering Glaive and a Haos Bracers, that is, that's Haos Bracers turn 2. Unlikely, but still has the chance to be a very powerful card. Just that flat plus 1000 boost is going to make Haos Bracers something to watch out for, especially in a gear-heavy deck that loads up with gear reduction. 2 copies of Guardian Wings. 3 energy for plus 100 B power, plus 3 damage. When you play this, draw 1. So it's a cycle. With Glimmering Glaive, it's a free cycle. So maybe if you do Haos Aquos flow deck with all of these nice cycle cards. Although here's a bit of an oddball. Haos Crescents. It's 1 energy for plus 300 B power. It's literally the same card as Super Shot, just with an added attribute symbol here. Oh yeah, I didn't notice this before. They actually have like the attribute symbol on the cards now. That makes oh, I already had the attribute symbol on it, but it's literally the same card as Super Shot, and it's also literally a worse version of Holy Flame, which is basically a better version of both cards. The only reason I can guess that they did this is that they wanted the deck to consist entirely of armored elite cards. They didn't want to include any older cards, which is why we don't have any Aurelus cards in this deck. Otherwise, we probably would have had a couple Age of Aurelus cards in here, which I think I would have liked. I think I would have liked something that is a more stable deck with maybe a few older cards rather than something that is completely from one set. Wing Arrow, it's 3 energy for plus 5 damage. It's literally Shine again. I'm not sure why they're not just giving these old cards new names. It's not like we need any more 1 energy plus 300 power for Haos. It's kind of odd. I really hope that they reprint some old cards under the old name, because there's a lot of cards, specifically cards like Pact of Darkness, that a lot of people have had trouble finding in decent quantity. So I'm hoping that if they reprint a lot of the old cards, like basically all of the popular card games do, that might not be a bad thing. Just give them some new artwork or something. I don't know. Sting Laser, 5 energy for again a measly plus 500 B power and a 1 draw cycle. That's actually really bad. That's a weird card for Haos to have too, because Cute Apocalypse costs the same and does basically the same thing, only it allows you to draw 3. Prism Blast, plus 300 B power for a cost of 2. Trifecta, if your Bakugan have 3 or more Baku cores attached to them, plus 700 B instead. So basically, actually, I'm looking at it. There's another one. There's a one, I think it's called Shield of the Faithful or something. There's another one that's cost 2 and is either plus 300 or plus 800 by dominating. The only way I could see you using this card is if you don't have any copies of that card. Otherwise, it might work well in a Glimmering Glaive deck. What I'm hoping to find maybe at some point in the set is the ability to search for Baku gear, because Glimmering Glaive is going to be a mainstay of any strategy, and Glimmering Glaive allows you to grab another core, and if you play a second one, you can get even more, or perhaps Mega Punch. Mega Punch can also be used as a gear cost reducer. But in this case, I still don't think... Did this really need a keyword? I still think that the one that just benefits from Dominate is a bit better. And finally, our flip card, Lightning Wing. It has the effect... Stop Darkus or Aquos. It's basically the same as the 1-cost flip Halt Unknown, which I actually recommended for my deck because of the sheer amount of Darkus and Aquos aggro out there in the field. Attach 2 Baku cores from the field to one of your open Bakugan. The big problem with this card is there is a very good chance that you won't have an open Bakugan because you just lost and everything has to be retracted. So I wouldn't say that's as good. The Aquos one is considerably better in the way that Ancestral Recall is better than a lot of the other cards we've seen. Aquo Plate, 3 cost plus 400 B power. Not bad. A lot of these Baku gear that boost B power, I am pretty sure, are going to be the really popular ones. Some of the ones that also boost damage, might be popular in dual strike decks. Like if I took the Pyro Hammer, I think I have the Pyro Hammer right here. Yeah, if I ran Glimmering Glaive with Pyro Hammer and Titan Dragonoid, that is all of a sudden all of the damage. It would work only well with double strike decks again, but a lot of these that just kind of boost B power are nice, although again, it only costs 1 less than Glimmering Glaive, and it doesn't have Glimmering Glaive's incredible combo potential, so not bad. Maybe something you can play with Glimmering Glaive. Tempest Generator, plus 100 power, plus 1 damage. When you play this, you may reroll this Bakugan, so not bad. Definitely something that you could use in an emergency. It's a reroll effect for cheap. That's pretty good. Although, because it's a reroll effect, it's probably not going to be benefiting from core cost reduction. But otherwise, you know, reroll effect is a reroll effect is a reroll effect. The fact that it offers a little pip, and you can just get rid of it if you have a better Baku gear on there already, not a bad card. I'd probably use it. Burrowing Blow, 5 energy for plus 1200 damage. Literally a better version of that one we were looking at before from Aquos. Ice Barrage. You know, now that I think about it, aren't Aquos wings that we see on here? Yeah, those are the ones that came with that are coming with the new Hydorus Ultra, isn't it? So we finally have the card for it, and it's actually really good. It's 5 cost, although you can reduce that cost to draw 2 cards. Not bad. This is 3 energy for plus 5 Frost Strike. I still think that I think I'd rather spend this on gear that added Frost Strike. Because Frost Strike for 1 turn isn't too bad because it actually has some importance now. But otherwise, I would probably save it for later. Carapace Spin, 1 energy, plus 100 B power, draw 1. So, oh man, Aquos keeps getting a lot of these really good 1-cost cycle cards. We have 1-cost cycles that boost damage, although boost damage and let you draw a card. Although doesn't Dark Water do the same thing? Doesn't Dark Water do the same thing, but provides plus 200 power instead? I'm a bit, all of a sudden I'm a bit dubious of this. Aquos keeps getting these cycles though, it's crazy. And finally we have Aquos Slime, which is Repel Aggression. Oh no, Counter Aggression. Which is, so it's Stop, Haos, and Pyrus, which are common aggro types, that's not too bad, but then you draw 2 cards. I mean, I don't say it's a tremendous flip because you're losing, but at least you can wriggle card advantage out of it, and it has enough stopping potential that I think this might actually be worthy of running. Like I said, it's a bit more like Ancestral Recall compared to the other cantrips from Magic the Gathering. But seriously, guys, I still say the main attraction of this deck is Glimmering Glaive. Once I'm able to get my hands on some more copies of Armored Elite, if we find more of these gear cards that have an instantaneous effect that I could then, you know, continuously ping off of the Bakugan that's still holding onto these cores, because I noticed the rules did not say that these cost-reducing core effects go away because the Bakugan isn't in battle. If you can get a number of these gear with effects and a way to search out Glimmering Glaive, this card is gonna help define the meta. I can guarantee it. You can play it turn 2, so it's plenty aggressive. It gives purely a boost to B power, which is going to be tremendously useful. And its effect gives you not only an additional boost to B power by grabbing an additional core, but cost reduction for all of the other gear. So this is going to be something to look out for. And it gives that cost reduction without needing to stay in play. If its effect hits, if your opponent destroys it afterwards, all they've destroyed is the plus 400 B power. The cost reduction remains until the cores go away. So this is a big deal right here. That said, though, I still think the deck is lacking. It has one absolutely incredible card in it, one pair of the absolutely incredible cards in it, which I don't know if the developers know how ridiculously incredible this card has the potential to be. But otherwise, you know, for a $30 deck, I hoped for a bit more bling, more Evo cards, more rare cards. I think for a $30 set, we at least deserve that. I wouldn't go so far as to say unique cards, because then the unique cards would be locked behind a $30 paywall, which I don't think a lot of people would be willing to pay for a game like Bakugan. And hey, added bonus, I finally have an Armored Elite Fist Core, so I'll be able to easily compare how the different cores go off across all different regions, because the only Japanese cores I have are the fist cores, because my only Japanese Bakugan is Pegatrix, which comes with 2 of them. So here we have the International Bakugan Baku Planet Core, Bakugan Battle Planet Core. Here we have the initial Bakugan Battle Planet Core. Here we have the Japanese Takara Tomy Core with the gigantic white fist that looks more like something on a traffic sign. And here we have the one for Armored Alliances. One thing I gotta say about the Japanese version of the core, I actually kinda like the street sign look a little bit more than this sort of illustrated and shaded fist that we see in Battle Planet and on the new Armored Alliances one. Although I do like the fact that the Armored Alliances one is much larger, so that we can, so that it's a bit more difficult to get lost in the shuffle. We also have that nice strong green all over the new core versus this one, which is honestly kind of drab. It just has that piddly little green fist on this piddly little picture, which is clearly on this very, very broad area here in order to make it easier to cut them. Probably the same with the Takara Tomy ones. The Takara Tomy ones just have this really nice, crisp look on the front thanks to the use of this sort of street sign design. It's why I like it so much. It's a bit brighter as well, although this one also has a lot of that brightness, and like I said, it shares the Japanese version's nice, bright, and green image, so it's a lot easier to tell these cores apart. Looking on the back, though, we have a bit of a more complicated system right here. Oh, I don't have 3 copies of the same core. Then again, I don't have the plus 100 Pyrus Haos plus 3 effect on here, because what this core does is it seems to be borrowing the best attributes of both of them. Because the thing about the Japanese core is it has a really slick look, but boy is this confusing to read. It has the plus 100 here, it has the plus 3 here, and it has like the symbols up here on the plus 3, but does that apply to the plus 100 as well? Does it that having the damage and the pluses in different locations is also kind of confusing. The thing I pointed out that I liked about these cores is that all of the relevant information is kept in one location, and that is the same with the armored elite cores we have over here. It borrows a lot of the slick Japanese core design, but instead it keeps all of the relevant information together in one place, rather than having it weirdly split up, and in some cases on the Japanese cores, posted twice. These little stones up here are also supposed to represent damage. I don't see why they felt the need to put that on there twice. In this case, it just straight up has that nice, crisp, clean information that the original cores got us. And now we have our pack-in Bakugan. We have Aquos Trox Ultra, we have Haos Pharol, and we have Aurelus Nillious, although we've already had an Aurelus Nillious in the past who has been featured in a lot of videos because I've gotten like 3 of them, but I'm going to say it again. For the purposes of gaming, they've actually made it so that these Bakugan have a much simpler, perhaps not as complete transformations. Like you have to bring out Trox's arms and his toes in order to fully transform him, but you really only need to do that when you display him. He can also open his mouth a little bit too. But you only really need to do that to display them. By leaving those steps, by adding those steps to be done manually, those are steps that don't have to be done backwards during a game. I have mentioned in the past how I liked how the old Bakugan were pretty much completely transforming themselves. But in this case, this is clearly designed to make gameplay streamlined and to go by faster, although it's apparently Nillious' turn to be the Chonkmeister. Drago has slimmed down a bit in his core version. He had to fold out his legs as well. On a lot of the others, that would have been maybe an automated process. But like I said, the thing that seemed to frustrate people most at the Barnes & Noble event I went to was that the Ultras were just too dang hard to close, and as a result, it was difficult to play a fun game with them. But these new designs for Armored Elite has fixed that problem. Although Pharol's kind of neat. It's got a lot of paint application that I kind of wish we could have gotten for some of the other detailed ones like Fangzor and stuff like that, but it transforms all the way, although that means you have to tuck these legs back in. They have clearly designed these things more for user-friendliness, more to be easy to play with, and I could not be more approving of that decision. That ease of frustration is also nice, and of course Trox Ultra, being an Ultra, is of course designed to work with the Baku Gear toys, although I kind of wish we could have gotten some Baku Gear in the set as well. Either that or maybe a slightly lower price point, like down to 25 or something like that, because all it really includes in addition to the Bakugan is a deck of cards, a cheap deck of cards. But wouldn't it have been cool if we could have gotten the Aquos wings in here, because this deck also comes with the wings of Aquos? That might have been cool. That would have added to the cool factor. I'm also a little surprised that the deck that is designed around boosting the presence of the weapons doesn't have more weapon boosting cores. I think in the entire deck it only has 2, but the deck is clearly all about oh yeah, the cores look a lot nicer and they stand up on their own now. It's a deck that's all about using Baku Gear, but only 2 of the cores in the deck actually lower the Baku Gear cost. I wish we could have gotten some more of that, although one thing I have said about good starter decks in the past is that they give people a clear place to improve it, and that is clearly one of them, as would the addition of perhaps more Evo cards. But like I said, it's a $30 deck. Either include better cards or lower the price. That's basically really all I have to say about it. Otherwise, the setup seems to be pretty nice. It does come with everything one needs to play the game, and the characters inside, thanks to their simpler designs and transformations that are designed to be easier to close, are a lot more user-friendly, and I think that will be important. We still need some of that nice punchiness that we need to see on the front of the box. The box is still terribly, terribly dreary, and it needs something to capture attention across the room, which I already talked about at the beginning. As for these Bakugan, the Bakugan, I might, maybe I'll make their own video. If people want me to see a video of me taking these things apart and taking a look at them, well, not really taking them apart, but taking a better look at their details, feel free to let me know, because those videos in the past have not always been the best. But anyway, this is a look at the Ultra Trox, the Trox Ultra Armored Elite Bakugan Pro Starter Deck, and until next time, this is Kohdok signing off.
Bakugan Pro, it's a big pro. Bakugan Pro, it's for it all. Bakugan Pro, standing tall, we're the awesome ones. Powers in our hand, take a